about what HR professionals need to really embrace so that they can get ahead of just how dynamic the workforce is that the base level things that their leaders, whether that's the CEO or a CHRO, is holding them accountable to, is that they get the table stakes things done 100%. And so most commonly, people are thinking about that as compliance, administrative elements, and that's critical with leave. It's important across lots of other parts of HR, but if you don't get the compliance pieces right, you can face lawsuits, actions with labor boards. And honestly, the one that's most important to me is that it's damaging between the trust between an employee and a company. And when they saw that the forms didn't get filled out correctly, or they didn't get all of the benefits that were part of your company policy, or dare we talk about the worst thing, which is clawing back wages. We won't even go there. So all of those pieces are where I think you should start, because if you can find solutions that allow you to address those efficiently, as an HR leader, you get to level up. You get to go from tactical to strategic, from reactive to proactive. And I think that's what's powerful, whether you're looking at a new HR system or a leave solution like what we have at Tilt, is will this help me start looking forward versus just trying to keep up?
And I mean, knowing there's so many solutions out there, how important is it to even then go a step further and prioritize ease of use? We know this software will help us accomplish what we need to accomplish, but how do you help some of those people who maybe aren't tech adopters, aren't people who really know what they're doing on the computer?
Yeah. For the parties that are thinking about ease of use, what I would say is that you should hold all of your tools to a high standard. I think I'll make an uncontroversial statement that HR technology writ large is not leading the world in user experience. But that doesn't mean that there aren't companies out there trying to. And I would say that's one of the things that hopefully people see is different about Tilt. We know that what we have built to date is not perfect, but we know that it is industry leading. And what we really care about is finding customers that are looking for that industry leading solution and want to give us feedback so that we can make what we have built even better for you. Because no one understands the problems better than the HR leaders that are in the company trying to manage a bunch of leaves and other responsibilities. So what is really powerful for me is that HR has a voice, and there's no more important time than now for them to speak up, because the pace of HR tools evolving has accelerated. And as much as it's buzzwordy, AI is a big part of that. Everything from how we can develop new features faster to how AI is a part of the systems that we're offering to HR leaders. Now is the time for HR to have the loudest, biggest voice they've ever had in telling the market what they need and what will help them be successful.
And do you view that kind of paradigm shift in maybe the way that the nation perhaps is viewing the importance of HR's role, an opportunity for HR leaders to come to the table as thought leaders within organization, organizational drivers, collaborators between, outside of their department, more with, managers, employees, C-suite, everybody?
A really interesting thing in this time with AI powered tools and how we get really high efficiency out of our HR tools enabling our HR teams is that a lot of people are seeing that there is going to be sort of a decentralization of HR, that HR is no longer going to be a centralized function, but rather with more powerful tools, individual departments or parts of the business can actually do more of HR themselves, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. And in fact, my recommendation to HR leaders is that they embrace that and they lead that. This idea that HR isn't a department on a different floor and you have to go find them, but rather HR practices are about how we make our people successful and therefore our business. And that is deeply distributed in enabling and empowering and offering agency to department leaders and everyone all the way down to the people, on whatever your version of the front line is. And I think leave is a great example of that. Like, what happens when you empower a manager to effectively support an employee going on leave versus just hoping why hasn't HR solved that? I like the former much better as a potential future version of our world.
And do you think that potentially can also shape how HR views leave of absence? If they're no longer having to react and can be this more proactive force, does it sort of change the stigmas around leave, perhaps?
Absolutely. I think a lot of the perception of leave is that a reactive approach to managing leave has made leave very painful, uh, and painful for everyone that is around it. It's challenging for the person who's going on leave because potentially it's the first time they've ever done it. And so they don't know what to expect. They don't know how to do it. They've never been trained on how to communicate effectively so their team can continue to be successful when they go on leave, and that therefore they're welcomed back when they return, hopefully. Similarly for the managers, that's really hard, right? Like you have so many other jobs that you're trying to complete in a day, and regularly leave feels like it sneaks up on you. And then all of a sudden you have a major team impact. And then when you zoom out to company leadership level, do you even have visibility? How many people are on leave? How many leaves are coming up? How prepared are we? I would argue that almost every company doesn't have that proactive view, but they could. And that's what's powerful about a different approach to leave like what we offer at Tilt.
From your point of view, do you feel like HR really understands or knows the power that they really hold over organizational success as deep as we know it can go when considering, leave management, turnover, employee satisfaction means customer satisfaction?
It's a great question. I give HR professionals so much credit. It's a tough role. Like it's generally under-resourced. There's really high expectations, and you are helping steward the most critical asset of any company, which is its people. And I think certain companies afford space for their HR leaders to be strategic. Some intentionally don't. I think that's really short-sighted. And I'm just optimistic that more and more HR leaders are seeing the patterns, examples from other HR leaders of how to put forth the business case for why being strategic, why being proactive in HR has a ton of return on investment, and that it's not the place to just send complaints or any other very unfair characterization of HR, but rather it's the central planning effort to make sure that your company can thrive this week, next month, a year from now, and 5 years from now. And I think leave plays a critical role in that because we know that leave is the intersection of work and life, and it's going to happen. And the question is, how do you want to manage it? Do you want leave to happen to your company, or do you want to proactively make leave an opportunity for creating value, creating culture, and driving retention?
Yeah, that's a great point. And to kind of add on what both you and Emma said, there are all these factors that go into leave, and then you're talking about how are you proactively planning, 1 month, a year down the road. As your organization is thriving, or let's say there's some merger or your company is growing, right? That should be the goal of every company. Scalability with technology tends to, rear its ugly head when you least expect it. How can you talk a little bit about how leave technology can play a role in kind of safeguarding an organization to, like, in theory, you're wanting to grow quickly, but that can mean more leaves, that can be a huge influx of leaves, and how can technology kind of like be there to support HR and an organization at whole?
Yeah, it's almost impossible to achieve, whether it's growth goals, profitability goals, market capture, any of those, if you don't have your people, right? Like if you have fewer players on the field than you thought, that is a tough mountain to climb. And so taking a proactive stance on managing leaves, both for visibility into how your team is in a position to help you achieve the goals, but then also the experience of leave for the managers, for the person going on leave, so that is as positive and as sort of minimizes the disruption. Because when a team member steps out on leave, it is disruptive. It's just the nature of it, of what it is. So the question is, how do you manage that? And that's what allows a company to really get in a position to think forward and really make strategic planning connected to their team capacity.